you know, we have to set our stuff up the best that we can for the presentation shot that we're shooting here for. If you already know what works good in Sketchfab, maybe you want to copy that same thing here in Substance Painter. So let's see what we can get out of this, okay? First off, we do not want to go directly to IRay to get this stuff started. You want to get as much set up right here in the previewer as possible. So that's what I'm going to do, in fact, first. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I want to pose my model, okay? I know that you probably think that you can't pose your model here in Sketchfab, and you really can't do it perfectly, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pose this model, but it's really just me unlocking my camera and tilting the whole environment around, okay? So that's where I'm going to come off of right here, is by tilting that information. One reason why we don't use those environmental shots, that's one of them, is you know, is tilting the camera. So what I'm going to do first is pose that model. I'm going to come over here to this camera option. I'm going to go to free rotation instead of constrained. And now you'll see that I can rotate this model around more than just the x-axis kind of thing, okay? So you're used to the stuff in Sketchfab, you know, doing its thing. Now I have free rotation over that model, and things are really loose. Set the shot up here. Let's get like a corner-to-corner shot like this, maybe. I do believe that IRay likes to zoom in a little bit. Try to find that a good aspect ratio for your work. Okay, so oh, I didn't mean to pull it off. So this is kind of like what 4K looks like right here. So try to set your camera up like that. Okay, so yeah, I think that's going to be a good shot for me like that. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Maybe I should get just a little more for shortening it here. You know, that looks a little bit better, actually. Something like that. Just play with it a little bit. Okay, looking good. Something else I want to show you guys too is this option here called the AO overlay. Okay, what this actually is, I call it the AO overlay. I'll make a new one up here on the top so you guys can see what's happening. But I know that if you've played around with Sketchfab, hopefully you've watched my lectures on Sketchfab and you know what the SSAO filter is. I really want everybody using that. The SSAO filter will add like an AO shadow to your model inside Sketchfab. It's like, I don't know why they don't turn that on by default. Yes, yeah, just like I'm doing here, Dewan. You know, this would be a good shot for any kind of sword. Is, you know, get in on the handle, okay? I think the handles, most of the time handles are where the details are. The length of the sword isn't really important to me. You know, I know that there's like a bandage down my blade for this sword. I don't think it's really that important to get that information in there. We'll see it in Sketchfab, basically, right? But yeah, I do want everybody using the SSAO filter, and I'm going to set it up here inside Sketchfab or inside Substance Painter for you guys here as well, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a fill node here. I'm going to make this fill node just a color. You know what? I should do roughness too. Let's try roughness. Okay. Fill node, base color, and roughness. I'm going to put a mask in here. I'll do a black mask, I think. I don't think it really matters if it's black or white, because I'm going to put a fill node in here. I'm going to come over to my textures, And I'm going to put my ambient occlusion map into that fill mask, okay? And what we're gonna see here, actually, you know what? Yeah, I've never done it this way. We'll see what we can get out of it, actually. So what I want to focus in on here is I really don't want the whites. I really want more of the blacks happening here. So I'm going to kind of make this a little bit more advanced than I usually have it in my lectures, actually. This one's my old one here. I want to do a little experiment on this while I have you guys here. To see what this looks like, because this is my old one here. If I bump this guy up a little bit more, you'll probably see it a lot more intensely. You see that AO shadow that just came up right there? It's showing up on my model. If I click it on and off, you see it actually happening there. That's pretty much what SSAO is inside Sketchfab, and that's what I'm kind of doing here in Substance Painter, is putting a little bit of this on there for my renders. It'll make IRay look a little bit nicer, right? Since we're doing an IRay, okay. But let's try it this way, so I can maybe play with roughness too a little bit. And I can use AO. Who knows? You know, we'll play around. So I have my ambient occlusion map in my mask here. This is what my mask looks like. I actually want the opposite of what I'm getting right now, though, because if I want to use this mask the right way, I want the stuff that I want to trigger is in the whites, not the blacks. So I need to reverse this around. And here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a levels node over top of this thing, and I'm going to click invert. And now I'm going to get the exact opposite of what I had there. Let's see what we're getting here. Okay, so you see how my AO is kind of like lighting up the model now? That's telling me that I have my AO triggered and pinpointed for this one mask. Pretty neat, right? So let's play with these colors now. I can lower the value now and get darker with it. So you see how my base color is getting a little bit darker there? Actually, what I want to set this thing up to is, instead of being normal, I want it to be multiply. Because that's going to take the color that was there and throw a little bit of that on there. You know, it's not really as intense as the last one, so maybe I need to bump up the intensity of this. Let's try some stuff here real quick. I want to get like some bigger whites in there. So let me play with my values and just kind of crank this up a little bit. Let's crank it up. All right, so you see what I'm doing there? I took my mask, you know, the visibility off there. So now I can see, here we go. Darken it up a little bit. Now I'm getting some of that in my base color. Looking pretty intense now. Kind of setting a tone for this thing. I'm faking the lighting here, so don't get too excited about this, okay, everybody? A little bit of faking there, nothing too crazy. So that's base color doing its thing. Now roughness, you're probably going to want to crank that all the way up. See, that's probably where I needed to slow my roll there a little bit, because now I don't want it so sharp anymore, because the roughness is kicking in here too and giving me some crazy stuff. So you see how the roughness can change things a little bit. Getting full roughness in there now. And I can come in here with AO and push my AO to black in that area. I don't think that's really going to change a lot. But there we go. There's my SSAO that I'm triggering onto my model here. And it should be giving me some good stuff. I think the roughness may be overdoing things a little bit. You have to be careful. If we go through our colors and stuff here, you know, check out my colors. I'm actually getting some blacks in there, which isn't great. Roughness, I'm not getting like any pure whites or pure blacks, so that's good. My mask is still soft enough that it's not really hurting too much. Ambient occlusion is pretty intense now. I think I'm just gonna take the AO off. I'm just gonna let the AO do its job as is. Okay, and that is my AO overlay. I do not recommend changing your AOs after you've already gone into the Substance Painter. That's tough, okay? Because if you change your UVs around, I mean, you can do that, but what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to turn off all of your masks and paint everything back on again. I mean, your layers can stay there, but you're gonna have to just remask everything basically, because everything is gonna be masked in a different position, and that's all gonna get it's all gonna, you know, be offset if you change your UVs. Okay, so just know that that's happening. If everything's already adjusted the right way though, then it's just like I don't need to adjust a new fill layer. I just need to go back in and put the map back in. So, I mean, you have some work ahead of you. All you guys have to do to replace your model is go to project configuration and throw in a new game res right here. You know, and make sure it's all put it in the right way. DirectX, tangent space per fragment, you know, that needs to be turned on. Get everything that needs to be in there. Probably not the auto unwrap. That's gonna mess up your UVs. Hopefully you guys have that stuff turned off. These newer features, like I don't have these newer features in my videos because they're like brand new, past 2 or 3 months basically. So, you know, I'm trying to make newer videos that help out with that. And if you guys are just watching the FSO videos and you're not coming to the Zoom trainings, then you're gonna miss out on that kind of stuff. So remain vigilant on that if you can. Okay, so that's my AO doing its thing there. I like it a little bit more. Let me see. So let's play with the scene settings now. So this is important. I'm gonna bump up my environment opacity to show you, like, this is why that camera tilting, you know, does this. So it's moving the whole environment around. I don't want you guys using environmental maps though. A big note on that one. Take that off. I don't care about the environment blur. You know, if you want good, I don't know if this affects the reflections. It might. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. But we can rotate the environment around though. You know, maybe there's a better lighting scenario here that we can find. Rotate your environment around, see if you can lock it into something you like. I don't know, I think what I had was actually pretty good to begin with. I don't know, we might want a little bit more rim light. Just the angle that I shot here wasn't looking too bad at first. I'm just gonna leave it there. I kind of like that. I don't know. Maybe you want to play with that before you rotate your camera around, or you may need to rotate your camera around a little bit afterwards. Okay. Sketchfab lighting or Substance Painter lighting, you only get one lighting control on your whole model. You can change the panorama. You can change the environment map. Maybe I don't want. Let me increase my opacity here to see. Maybe I don't want it to be in green planes. Maybe I want it to be somewhere else. Maybe, you know, I want things to be a little bit more dreary and overcast because I'm in a more dramatic environment. Try some of these out. Maybe I can get some freaking like final battle crap going on here. This is my only control that I have, is this environment exposure. This one is not too great. I don't know why I'm missing like half of my environment there. That's too dark. You know, maybe over the clouds. What am I in? Some kind of space, like some kind of atmospheric battle? That's weird. Let me bring my exposure back down to 0. Yeah, that's kind of strange. Industrial, you know, if I'm indoors, you know, we can go indoors with it. I mean, most of your HDRIs here inside Substance Painter are pretty close to the same as what we have in Sketchfab. So if you already have one that you're working with in Sketchfab, you may want to stick with that. Do not use like these studio lighting ones though. That is not like good lighting. That's gonna be, you know, hurtful to the model. We're not doing like we're not doing advertisement shots basically, okay? So, you know, here's a nice morning shot. This one might be really dramatic. We'll see. Wooden pier at the morning. Let's rotate it around. Oh, yeah. Like a nice warm light on this thing. Let me lower the opacity down to see like what this thing's actually doing to my lighting here. Okay. I actually like the warm light a little bit better. Not too bad. Bump up the exposure now. The exposure is the only control you have here. Play with, you know, we have rotation and we have exposure. So yeah, now I'm in more of a dawn kind of situation here. And we need to turn shadows on too. Let's see what this looks like with shadows. By default, I think it goes to intensive. So just play with the opacity, and that should adjust things a little bit. I don't know why it goes straight to like this intense. You probably want light, like just lightweight shadows. And again, you know, we can play with rotating things around. Bump up the exposure a little bit more, maybe. Just kind of start playing with this stuff right here before we have to render anything out. That's usually a mess. Field of view and focal length too. If I want some more depth, you want to increase your focal length. But again, you know, if I want this thing coming at me a little bit more, something like that. Okay, I'm gonna have to come in here and play with my shadows a little bit more again. Probably too heavy on the shadows. Okay. A little bit more depth in there now. Now it's pushing off a little bit more into perspective. You guys have filters as well. You can play with filters. You know, you can put a vignette on these things. I usually restore all defaults, but we can play with tone. I thought there was like maybe it's in here. Yeah. Color correction, so we can turn this on. Maybe I want less saturation. Maybe this thing's too colorful or not colorful enough. Let me bring saturation down a little bit. I think it's a little too colorful. Play around with contrast. Be very gentle with this. It's really oof, jeez. I don't know. I didn't really even get anything from that. Play with brightness or darkness, you know, whichever one. Bias. I didn't know that was a thing. I think that's just the controls of all of these, really. Okay, depth of field, I would stay away from that one. We can play with exposure a little bit too. Get some of those gammas popping. Vignette I don't recommend because once again we're gonna have the vignette in the background, so that's gonna help out a little bit more. Right, and I think just a little bit more of a bump in the lighting again. It never hurts. Okay, so I think I have my shot set up the way that I want to here. We're not doing wireframes. Subsurface scattering you guys can turn on. Anti-aliasing. I don't know. I would leave that off till we get to IRay probably. Just not wait for the lag on that. Okay, I have everything set up the way that I want to. I think I want my saturation back. Something kind of pulled my colors out a little bit, and now, there we go. All right, I'm done picking with this thing. Let's go to IRay. All right, so don't worry. I don't know why it didn't take my environment settings there. We'll play with it, okay? So first off, yeah, what the heck? Okay, we'll work with this. We're gonna override viewport settings. We want 3840 by 2160, just like the other images that we've been working with. This is the, there we go. That should be the right one right there. Okay, so this is HDRI 4K resolution here, okay? That should be the right setting for you. Is this one right there. And now that I'm seeing, yeah, it did kind of zoom in a little bit too much. I should have zoomed out a little bit more. Let's, okay, I'm just gonna stop this here. Let's just zoom out a lot more. Adjust it. And go back to IRay. See if that'll fix things. I don't want to sit there and wait for it to get the right thing. There we go. Okay. Turn your sample size, turn your sample sizes down. Just bring them lower, so we're not waiting for it, the whole time. Okay. I'm just gonna try to pause it. There we go. All right. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why the environment's in the background, but this should fix it right here. We're gonna come over here to dome. You want that to be the sphere with the ground. Turn clear color on. Okay. And probably, if you have your color that you worked with in Sketchfab, you can type in that code again. Actually, no, you can't type in, but I mean, you can try to find that color again. I'm gonna say it's probably like, bluish color in here. That's what I like to use, is this kind of color. It's like a darker blue. You may want to turn ground shadow off, especially if you're tilting like this. That can be kind of annoying looking. So yeah, I'm gonna turn the ground off. Don't want that. All right. Let's re-render this thing. There we go. Changed up a little bit. Still a quick render though. Just get it done fast. I'm just playing with the background color because I want it to look close to what I'm going to use in Photoshop. Okay, I want my lighting to look good for my background, so I'm setting it up like this. But rest assured, this background's going to be gone when we export it. I did. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely do that. Yeah. If I have it set to 0 seconds, it's going to cap out with that first though, okay? So just know that, yeah, your stuff's gonna cap out with whatever you're working with. Whatever's the smallest, it'll be like, hey, max time 0 seconds. Okay. Okay. So hopefully most of your things are set up here. Like I said, your camera's set up. You have your filters looking good. You know, the shadows that get put onto this model are actually built into IRay, so you don't really have controls over that here in IRay. So you just take your best guess at it. You know, temporal anti-aliasing. You know, we don't want all that pixelated anti-aliasing going on there. Subsurface scattering. If you have something that's like we said, if you have something that's really translucent, you guys can add a glare if you want. Maybe just don't go crazy with it. You know, we're not doing J.J. Abrams stuff, you know, with solar flares and crap. Okay, so just keep it simple, very, very light. We'll play with that. Okay. Subsurface scattering though is like the translucency of skin. So if you're modeling something like plastic, or you know, kind of see-through, you know, something that would be translucent, that absorbs light and kind of makes like a soft glow, then you can play with subsurface scattering and see if you can get a little bit of that effect going. Most of you probably don't have that going on though, and that's okay. And most of that stuff looks pretty good. Let's play with glare now that we have the option here. There's glare. Again, like we don't need to go crazy with this thing. Just a little tiny peep. Like this thing is just reflecting all kind of crap out of it. Okay. All right, so remap is that kind of glow coming off of that that crazy freaking unicorn glare. I don't think that's helpful. And honestly, like this kind of stuff might not show up in the alpha of your image, so just be careful with that, okay? Yeah, you can play around with a little bit of that. You can change the shape of it too. So let me get this in there. You can change what shape it actually is. So you probably want to set it up with a bloom like that. You know, getting the more star shape and lens flare kind of stuff in here gets different shapes. It's pretty crazy though, right? Cheap lens. Yeah, so you kind of see the different shapes that these things make. I guess it's up to you really what you're doing. I really don't recommend getting too crazy with this stuff, right? And this thing isn't really even rendering. It's, you know, it's immediate stuff. So we still need some time to render this thing out. I think bloom gets the job done without looking like some kind of you know, magical thing going on there. Okay. Remember, we're not trying to be Steven Spielberg or anything like that in here. We're trying to, you know, to sell a good-looking model without too many distractions. So make sure whatever you're doing, make sure it's not distracting. You see, you know, the way that I set up my lighting here, I've got a lot of contrast happening right here, and obviously our eye is going straight to that middle point. So strategize where you want people looking on your model. Don't find some crappy part of your model that you don't want anybody looking at and put a huge glare there. Okay, that's not going to sell. Alrighty. Okay, everything else seems like we're good. Now I'm gonna come up here and we'll bump up some more this time. You know, oh geez, the multiplier on this thing's pretty crazy. I would suggest that you don't go, you know, maybe get like 30-minute at the most, 30-minute render. Okay, that's what I would shoot for. Obviously 12 samples is getting things done pretty quick. So bump up those samples a little bit more. Again, watch those multipliers. That stuff's pretty crazy. I'm gonna keep this to 1 minute renders and see what we can get. I think this will get the job done. We really just want to get rid of those like pixel fairies that are happening in there. The little sprites. It shouldn't take long though. I'm not working off of like a big machine. I'm working off the MacBook Pros that you guys have. So don't think that I'm doing crazy stuff, you know, and getting renders done immediately because I have some kind of powerful machine. Your machines are probably more powerful than mine is right now, honestly. This thing is like 5 years old. So still rendering. Anybody have any questions while I'm going through some things here? There's also the shader that you may want to play with too. Giona's coming in. You'll notice here, I didn't know this was on right now. Okay, so you'll notice that down here at the bottom, displacement and tessellation is turned on. So it actually, we're actually getting displacement from our height, and the height is actually going into our model. Okay, so you'll realize that that's happening in the IRay render. That's why IRays look so good, is because it's actually displacing the geometry, and it's doing a lot more than what normal maps can do. Basically, it's actually taking the surface and pushing it in so that you're getting shadows for height details. Okay, so you're gonna get some pretty good looking stuff inside Substance Painter. I just want you to know that it's not gonna do that in Sketchfab. And don't try to do it in Sketchfab because you actually need geometry for that, okay? If you try to put displacement, if you try to put your height, like a height map and displacement for Sketchfab, it's gonna take all your polygons and just try to do something with it. And it's not good, okay? So only do that if you only use that kind of stuff if you have like a really high res model that like terrain, you know, mountains and stuff, and then put a height map in there and it'll move it around. That's how they do environments, is they, you know, if you're using the terrain tool inside Unreal, basically, if you've ever played with that before and you're making like little mountains and stuff, that's you're painting a displacement map and the geometry is just displacing for you, basically. That's what's going on. There's that crazy geometry for terrain inside Unreal. That's pretty much what you're doing, is you're just like ZBrush sculpting a terrain, and stuff like that in Unreal. Okay, it says we're still rendering, but displacement is turned on here. It's something you can do. I don't mind it. It's using height, tessellation, so it looks like it's adding geometry uniform to the model to get tessellation to work the right way. We have emissive. Okay, so if any of you guys have any glowing lights, you may want to play with your emissive intensity so that you get more glow off of it, or less glow, whatever you're doing. Okay, but that's here in the shader as well, in your shader settings right here. You should be using PBR Metal Rough unless I've given you opacity to work with. Then you may need to play around with that a little bit more and use PBR Metal Rough with alpha test or with alpha blending. Those are your two options for opacity there. Okay, it seems like we could do some refraction too. So if you're using opacity, it might be able to bend the light and refract it. Something else for you to play around with there. And subsurface scattering. So this is where you want to tell it like how much it's supposed to glow and bloom. If you're doing the subsurface scattering, which is like the translucency of skin, you know, this is like, hey, I'm doing skin, I'm doing translucent, and this is what color is going to bloom out of it. So naturally it's set to pink. because that's what our like base skin tone is. You know, we're all pinkish on the inside, so that's what our insides look like, is very pink. That's the color that's going to kind of bloom out of us. All right. That's subsurface scattering. This render is done. Okay. Let's take it out now. I'm going to save render. You want to save this thing as a PNG, okay? What this is going to do, let me come back over here, display settings. You need to have this clear color turned on, okay? Have that clear color turned on. And what's going to happen is when I save this as a PNG, it's going to put an alpha on that background. So wherever I take it, if I take it into Photoshop, that background will be gone, and it's just going to be my model that we're looking at. The same thing that happens with Sketchfab, okay? I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to put it on the desktop. Save it as Katana IRay. Saving it. All right. I am going to, turn it down. There we go. You see the white background back there? It'll have the right color if you just click on it. Actually, no, it goes straight to flat gray. Whatever your settings are set to. But there's my IRay render there. You're going to go to that Photoshop file that I gave to you in 1.5, and you're going to slip it on in there. Easy to the peasy. Photoshop. I hope Photoshop doesn't lag me out here. Okay, so those were some GIF files that I was working on. Let's open. Oh, sorry. I need my portfolio background shop. That's what I need to turn on. This guy right here. So this is what it should look like, and what you guys should have set up. Ignore the timeline down here. I don't even feel like minimizing that because I'm probably going to need to use it again. Okay, here's that Photoshop file that I gave to you. I am going to, again, I don't know why everything's turned on now. I thought it was just one setup by default. This thing's probably going to look best if I go with bottom right or bottom left, probably. Stick with that. Turn off my demo model here. Don't need that guy. Place screenshot there. Sure. I'm gonna go to place, embedded, linked. I don't remember what the difference is between that. Honestly, I don't know if I've ever understood that. It works either way, truthfully. So go, slap that katana in. It should fit in perfectly. You shouldn't have to touch it. 3840 by 2160 is the size that we're looking for there. So we should get perfect, a perfect fit, right? Now let's play with the background colors and everything too, right? Because the warm isn't really looking too good. I'm more of a fan of the cooler colors. Just play with it. You never know what you're gonna get. Cool day. No, it's way too bright. That's too bright. Okay. Yeah, I think this cool night one is probably the one I'm gonna shoot for here. This one's not too bad either, but yeah. I don't know, actually, like the color of my blade here kind of seems like we're getting warm lighting. Maybe I should go for warm night instead. I'm gonna try this one out and see where we get. I think this is a nice mellow tone for this portfolio piece, so we'll stick with that. Texture, let me pick a texture here. We got crack, splattering dirt. A lot of people like the splatter dirt. That's okay. Molded, clean me. Speakers isn't gonna work unless I'm doing like Afro Samurai or something. Brick wall, no. Plank wood could work. I don't think pavement would work. So probably like plank wood or dirt splatter. I think dirt splatter maybe. This seems so open over here now. You know what? I'm gonna I'm gonna change now to upper right and push my name over there. Probably would be better like that. Vignettes. I think I want to go darker with the vignette. Right now I'm on medium dark. Let's just go dark. Maybe not. Maybe I need to brighten up the middle. No, that's too much. Ooh, actually. Maybe that's what I need to do is just darken the middle up. I don't know. No, that looks cheesy. All right, I think middle dark is probably doing the best for me right here. I'm gonna stick with that. Banner looks good. Stick with that. And I have this value adjuster over here too, okay? So you guys can activate this guy right here, and you should be able to play around with your brightness and contrast now. So I can bump up my contrast a little bit more, maybe lower my brightness if I want this thing to be a bit darker. This is your way to change with these things now. Okay, just some mild little tune-ups. You see the difference now? Just a little difference. Come on in here, put your name and email. And then the image is done. You save it, and this is gonna be an IRay render.